Alright, welcome to episode 93. I just forgot what I was saying there. 93 of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw the first stage of World War 3, which took kind of a long time to record. And in today's episode, we're going to continue with that. If you haven't noticed, the nukes in Australia and America have gone down by quite a considerable amount, and that's because I just updated those. I haven't updated Southeast Asia, so we can do that together, so that'll be fun. I updated Australia and America because, it's not going to take that long to do it in the video, and I might as well do it here. So let's get started with the wars in America. Lots of the nuclear bombs here have been deployed along the coast, except for the Pink Country. The Pink Country is noticeably a lot weaker than everyone else, so American forces are geared towards invading this country. They tried to invade or nuke the cities here in Michigan to stop an American landing, but the Americans do not care, and they put on their hazmat suits, and they invade into this northern peninsula here in the Lavender Country, taking a major city around here, and knocking them entirely. I just don't remember these stupid lakes. There's a lot of them. One of them's like Huron. I think that's Superior. That's like Michael or something. I might have made that one up. That's quite a few. There's one beginning with E, I think. I don't know. It's like a French sounding one. Anyway, the Texans see what the Americans are doing. They're like, you know what? This guy actually is so much easier to invade. And there's basically no forces here in the south, so the Texans have a really easy time pushing into this southern territory. Also no cities, and the Texans nuked a lot of the ones here down in the south as well. So they really start to push up. The Americans realize that they can lose a lot of ground to the Texans over here, so they start to also move their forces up into the Pink Country, who at this point realizes, there's no hope of really surviving this. So what they're going to do is spend the other two remaining nukes they have and launch them both into these countries. So one for the Texans and one for the Americans. The Texans are just going to get this city nuked, which doesn't really matter, and the Americans are going to lose a bit of stuff here. But not the end of the world, really. I mean, for some people it is, because it's the end of their life. I didn't really talk in the last episode about how absolutely horrible this scenario is. I mean, these bombs aren't like world destroying. They're probably smaller than the ones used in Japan in real life. They're more like tactical bombs, which is why we're just seeing them used for tactical purposes. But it's still an absolutely horrible thing to do in this world, and I mean, I feel very bad for these imaginary people I've made up. But the Pink Country is fully occupied. I did kind of speed through the entire collapse, but also they're just not that strong. The Germans weren't really giving them any supplies, because they just collapsed really quickly, and the Germans were like, well, I'm kind of trapped. It's very hard for the Germans to get supplies out, because the Arabic Union's alliance controls the North Sea, so that sucks. And the English Channel, and apart from that, there's nowhere else they can really go. And their only ally in Europe is gone, and they're entirely surrounded by enemies apart from Hungary, so this is really bad for the Germans. Anyway, from here, noticeably enough, the Texans are going to start to invade into this northern territory, and that's because there's not many American forces occupying this stuff, and that is entirely because the Americans plan to invade the other areas of Texas. So American forces are going to move away from the territory in the north and begin invasion now towards the Louisiana area and the capital city of the Texan country, taking one major city and pushing towards this nuked one. They also move over here into the Louisiana land, and Louisiana is not defending that well. American forces push out from this peninsula, panhandle bit, and they manage to secure control over this territory until finally Texas is like, we might actually need to defend, guys. But they've already lost a lot, so oh well. One deal with it. America. Nice. Oh, also the Germans have lost 2 more nukes from that, and they don't have any more nuclear bombs outside of their territory, so they're down to a huge grey blob on their country. To header. Okay, that was potentially bad. What did I do? No, this thing's fine. Okay, I thought everything had been destroyed, but don't worry, guys. It's all good. I'm just bad at this game. My gosh. Did I get rid of a load of nukes that got dropped? I very well might have done. Okay, cool. What the hell's going on in my mind? Nice. There we go. You can do it, man. You're good at this game. Norwegians noticeably have a lot of nuclear bombs left. A lot of. These guys go down to 28 nuclear bombs, and that's it for that. So cool. And we need to talk about the front over here in Ukraine, because that should have changed quite a while ago, probably. So the Russian forces were pushing down into the Ukrainian area at the very beginning of the war, how it's been very stalemated in this territory because of just this is the center of concentration for the fighting. But we see Russian forces managed to push the Arabic Union out of Crimea. They had a huge battle over here in Kerch, but they pushed across and they had to move across the Kerch Strait into Krasnodar. The Russians also recaptured both of these cities and began to push down across the Krasnodar area into some of this other Arabic forces territory, Arabic country territory. They also pushed on the northern part of this lake slash river area, but the Arabic Union is having more success elsewhere, and that is over here in the Caspian Sea, as their forces are doing an excellent job invading in the old Astrakhan area and pushing up towards this lake, actually pushing across the river area, which is pretty bad. They're also having more successes down here in the Caspian, as they managed to recapture, or just straight up capture, the capital of the Central Asian country, and that country is basically just Arabic Union occupied now. And they also continue to push on into the Pakistani country. So this nation is really not having a fun time in the war. Arabic Union is actually going to make the executive decision to drop a whole load more nuclear bombs onto this place, because Pakistan hasn't been nuked enough apparently, which is they have been nuked enough, don't worry, they have. But yeah, so the Arabic Union is going to drop 1, 2, 3 sorry, I just spoiled it there, 4 nuclear bombs into this country, maybe another one in the center just for good luck. That's 5 more nuclear bombs that they've deployed, and it's just their own ones. They're down to 110 and 54. Still 110 nuclear bombs. You can do a lot of damage with that. But there you go. I mean, 54 outside the territory, that's like half of the bombs not even on Arabic soil. So that's interesting. Anyway, I did say I was going to do Southeast Asia, so let's head over here. A lot I need to do in today's episode. Because there's like 3 major countries in this region, and then you guys. But we'll get to Australia in a minute. Because first we need to drop a whole lot of nuclear bombs. I don't know why I say it in that voice. It's probably not a good thing. Anyway, the Borneo country and this country realize that this Sulawesi nation is the major threat. So they are going to drop 1 nuclear bomb on this city right here. And then the Java country is going to drop another one on this southern area. They're going to drop one in the north from the Borneo country, destroying this city. And then they just nuke the capital of the Javan country because just for fun. In response, the Javan country is going to drop a nuke on the southern part of this nation, which reduces their nuclear count all the way down to 1, which, you know, oh well, I guess they've got 1 nuclear bomb now. See if they can put that to good use anywhere, which they probably can't. Whilst the Borneo country goes down to a crazy 2 nuclear bombs, but now it's time for the reply from Sulawesi, which actually has quite a few nuclear bombs. So they've got 9, and it's time for them to drop bombs on people. The Borneo country has a lot more coastal cities, so they're going to drop one there. And then also here in the northern coast of the Javan country, we see 2 more Borneo cities nuked, which is a total of 4 nuclear bombs already dropped. And they drop one right over here in the north. That's 5 nuclear bombs. And this country's still got 4, which is more than the Javan country had at the start of this conflict. Sorry, that sucks for you guys. But womp, you'll be fine. So there's Sulawesi. Let's actually just move their nukes over here. But we're not quite done because China, China, the country with 110 bombs, they're going to drop some more onto this place. Mainly Borneo, really. Borneo's going to get absolutely eviscerated. With little cities over here in the north, and all of these cities are going to get absolutely destroyed. That's 4 nuclear bombs that have been placed, and another one over here to make it 5. The Javan country isn't going to get hit by any, and they haven't got the reach to hit this city. These bombs don't really go very far, which it's kind of designed for, I guess. So China's going to lose like 10 bombs because they had 10 from Sulawesi. Okay, it's annoying. 10 from Sulawesi, and then they launched. Shut up! I know what I mean. Oh my god. There we go. So 121. You know what I mean. Anyway, the Russians also just launched a load of nukes, and okay. And so did the Arabic Union allies. I mean, so the Russians will go down by 2 nuclear bombs, which is going to be a crazily heavy blow, taking them from 100 and taking down to 108 and 56. And then the Arabic Union is going to lose some from the Borneo ally, launching some, so they go down to 107 and 51. Alright, there you go. This is actually quite a complex thing to do, if you didn't realize. I don't know, it's kind of tricky sometimes. Anyway, nice. There's Southeast Asia, but let's actually get to the proper fighting in this territory. because we somehow avoided doing that, the Chinese forces are going to start to invade into the northern areas of the Borneo nation, who is just not really having a great day today. All their cities have been completely obliterated and destroyed, and the Chinese bombs they drop, just like the general invasion, also help out in just obliterating this country. They start to really lose over here in the north, and the Sulawesi country is going to also make their own landing invasion, moving into this eastern coastal territory as this country entirely starts to fall apart. The people here are very discontent with what's happening in their nation. However, Java is, well, they're gonna invade. Don't worry. They were kind of thinking about not invading, just not to get involved, but they do. Don't worry. They're a lot less successful because their areas haven't really been nuked and destroyed as much, and the Borneo country is actually going to move their forces in to protect their capital city, which is pretty nice of them to actually somehow work. But there's that. Heading over here to Australia then. As you'll notice, most of the nuclear bombs have been dropped on the blue country, and that's because the president of the blue country said just before the war started, or just as the war was starting, that the blue country is going to win, unite all of Australia under the Indian people who Australia is rightfully home to, not the Europeans. The Europeans the European settler people didn't take that very well. They were like, well, we've been here almost as long as you guys have, so it's only fair that we should also be able to share Australia. And they were like, no, it's not. So now both the European and Australian countries are going to start their invasions of this nation, with the pink country moving in through the central regions, which is kind of strange. But they want to cut off this huge Queensland area here in the north. They also managed to move up the coast and take this city, and it's when the blue country president, he's ousted because he was rubbish. He kind of screwed over their country, really. They have one nuclear bomb left, and it's a question of whether they're going to use that at all, as they lose more and more of this Queensland Peninsula area, and they kind of need some help from China. Anyway, there's this. They also move into here just to occupy that land, and this country is having a really, really horrible day. The Western Australians they nuked a city over here, and then this city also got nuked, and both of these ones. But they're not going to focus on the Eastern Australians and New South Wales. They're just going to continue to move across the northern areas, taking the capital city, and with that we see the pink country having a lot more success over here near Darwin. Darwin's in northern Australia, isn't it? City's over here. This country has basically lost all of its coast. The Western Australians start to move in towards this city in the desert, which they do. Hooray, that's gone. And nothing is going well for this nation. Nothing at all. Eventually they finally lose their only remaining northern city right over here, and both these countries will send in just general groups to start to occupy all the central territory in this land, which looks something like this. So goodbye to them. There's still some forces holding on up here in Queensland, so we're going to leave them there, and after that we're going to head over here to go anywhere. I mean, we can travel the world. There's so many places we can go. Let's go to Europe, shall we? And actually look at the naval layer, because I haven't looked at that really in this war. And the thing we're doing today is the British. They're going to be making a landing here in the Irish lost all their naval stuff, and unfortunately for them, they're just going to continue to lose things. The British make a landing in Northern Ireland, coincidentally enough, and push towards the Irish capital. The country is a military dictatorship, so they have a pretty strong military, and most of their people, what's the word? Not voluntary, the opposite of that. You have to train to do some military stuff in this country, unless you're like extremely disabled, in which it's kind of fine. But I guess you would know like codes and or other military sort of things. I'm not an expert. I just do videos every 3 days about war, but I'm not an expert on war. Anyway, poor Ireland's not having a great time. They never really do in these wars, which kind of sucks for them. Anyway, the Franco-Union is going to drop a load more nuclear bombs, but this time it's on the Spanish. They really didn't nuke before, but this time they've decided they're going to actually do that. So 4 nuclear bombs in Spanish territory, and a 5th one over here just to make everything a nicer number. So that's great. They're mostly using Arabic nukes, because the ones they have in their country they like them more. So they go down to 26, and 2 nuclear bombs in the Arabic country, but why not just get rid of both those nuclear bombs and just launch some into Italy? Actually, no, let's not launch them into Italy, that'd be mean. Let's launch them into Germany instead, because everyone doesn't really like the German country. So there's 2 more nuclear bombs to hit that territory that might very well be Dutch. But oh well. The Spanish are currently sitting on quite a few nukes with 7, and they're going to drop 2 of those into the into the Carthaginian country, also launching 1 into this area. And with that, they also drop 1 here into Morocco, which is going to be kind of interesting. So they've just launched 4 nuclear bombs, which is going to bring their total down even further from 7 all the way down to 3, which is not that many nuclear bombs really. The Italians also only have 7, which isn't that many, but they're actually just going to do some fighting. They're going to try and push back German forces in their northern territories, which is going well. Then they've managed to hold back the Carthaginians somehow, but Arabic forces are doing a pretty good job at invading into this Adriatic coastal territory and pushing up towards the border of Germany. German forces instead start to move like westwards, kind of relocating out of fear, and they still manage to do a pretty good job at invading the Italian country. However, here, Italy and the Arabic Union realize that Germany is actually a major threat, and really we should try and wipe them out together in the power of friendship. So Franglo forces are going to start to absolutely push back German forces over here, and they do a really good job at sending the Germans back to just occupying this one city right over there. From here, Franglo forces push into the very populated Belgium areas of this country, and up into the southern areas of the Dutch nation, and towards this huge area that's full of radiation and nuclear stuff. That's great. Anyway, back up to Norway. Norway is having an interesting time in this war. The Russians are invading them up in the north, but nobody lives there, so it's kind of fine. Just some Druidic people. Russia's also not really caring about this front, but they just want to get closer to the core Norwegian territory. But Norway has joined in with this general idea of, pushing back the Germans because they're scary. And the Germans realize this is happening, so they're going to do some scary stuff, which is drop nuclear bombs on people. Because that's what everyone's doing in this war. It's what all the cool kids are doing in this conflict. So they're going to drop 1 nuclear bomb on like Hull, which is, it's not that much worse really after that. Anyway, they drop another one onto Italy, so that's 2. Yeah, I'm sorry to all my viewers from Hull. That was mean. They're also going to drop some on Russia, just because nobody really likes the Russians here. Actually, I didn't drop any of the Russians. I just went past that. I think that's 7 nuclear bombs there, and they also dropped one on the Norwegian capital because screw the Norwegians, I guess. I think that's a total of 9 nuclear bombs. I can't really count, so oh well. But they're now down to 19 nuclear bombs, which is still quite a lot. But the Italians are going to have, of course, have a response to this, so they're going to launch some of their own nukes into the German country, moving with their forces quite high up in the north. They're going to launch one into the German capital, and then also into some of these surrounding cities. That's another 3 from them, which puts them all the way down to just 4 nuclear bombs, which isn't that great, really. But, everyone's kind of running out of nukes in this war. The Germans went down from 60 to 19, so that's what it's like for the world. Anyway, the German nukes didn't really stop the Norwegians pushing them back, as German forces kind of collapse in on themselves and they have to return back to their home country. The Russians are going to make a pretty astounding thing, which is a major naval victory here in the Baltic Sea, as we see Russian forces push back what would be German forces right over here. The Russian Navy is doing an incredible job at winning in the Baltic Sea, which isn't really portrayed. The Norwegians are just kind of losing all their control over their navy over here, which sucks. But the Russians on this map, will take over the island of Gotland, and that's gone. They've got it. Haha, funny. Anyway, the Norwegians continue to move into this territory, but finally, with their mind set on absolutely obliterating the Germans, they're going to try and launch some of their own nuclear bombs. They've got 14, so they should be kind of fine. I can't find any there. There we go. Cool. They're very close to the core German territory, so they're going to launch some nukes into North German lands. One's going to hit over here, so that's the 3rd one. Another one hits the German capital, which is a 4th nuclear bomb, and then also the city of Hamburg is nuked, or the equivalent. So that brings the Norwegians down to 9, which is still really quite a lot, if you think about it. And the Russians are going to continue to move into Germany now, as they realize Germany might just be about to die. So they're doing a pretty good job here in the Romanian areas, and they push them back to the Elbe and past that. In fact, beyond this, they managed to push them entirely out of Romania. Well, it's kind of just the Germans retreating from this country. because why bother staying? The Russians then will start their own efforts at nuking the German country, who is going to turn into a radioactive wasteland in a second. As more and more German cities fall, they join in on nuking the German capital, but also nuke areas which kind of help the Norwegians, but also, I mean, they kind of wanted it back. But there's 5 nuclear bombs dropped by the Russians, but they can kind of do better than that, so there's a 6th one. I just realized that people have allies. Oh, that sucks. Alright, so I've just updated the nukes for the Arabic Union and Russia. I just realized that both of them had a load of countries use their nukes from their allies. I was like, wait a minute. Oops. There you go. So those are their numbers at the moment. Also, a cool thing that I didn't really realize just now, but I'm going to say just now, is the Russians and the Arabic Union have 3 different front lines to fight each other on, with the Arabic Union doing really, really well over here in Romania, as they managed to push the Russians out of this coastal territory. So that's good for them. The Russians are having a lot of success over here in Germany, however, as they push around these German forces and kind of, there's going to be like a 4th one. It's going to be entirely surrounded by Hungary. Well, Hungary's just going to have a really bad time. But the Italians will actually manage to have some major victories over here against the Arabic Union. They don't really use nukes because they really want this stuff back. And in peace treaty, maybe they would be able to just get, like, not lose all of this if they lose to the Arabic Union, which they very well could. Anyway, the Italians continue to do some work against the Germans in the south, and at this point, the Germans realize they're really, really screwed. They're going to withdraw all their forces from Sweden, or they're just going to get killed, as the Norwegians effectively take back Scandinavia, apart from the Danish areas. One big problem, however, is the Russians, and they're kind of moving in towards you guys, so I would be afraid. They're going to try and make the very, very risky, it takes a lot of resources, but they managed to land here in some Danish islands, and they also make their landing here in the very northern areas of Denmark. So that's nice. And Germany's just not having a great time. As for Ireland, we'll get back to them in a second, but we need to head over here to East Asia, because I should have gone here ages ago, and I didn't. The Chinese are having some huge successful moments of invading Russia. As you can see, I just went on the 70 for the brush. As Chinese forces absolutely bulldoze the Russian ones over here in the east, Russia is completely losing to the Chinese, and unfortunately it looks like it's going to continue going that way. As Chinese forces continue to move west, they have just 2 front lines to fight the Russians on. The Mongolian country is going to lose their capital and their northern areas, as all their forces are forced to withdraw from the Tibetan country, and after that we see Tibet just kind of moving through lots of the south. The Russians then are going to try to invade into the Tibetan country to kind of like, haha, well, I'm invading you now, but they don't really do that well, and that's kind of just because it's Tibet, and Tibet's hard to invade. As this is happening, we see Kashmir forces actually start to push back against the Mind country over here, and it's kind of just showing things aren't going well for the Russians in Central Asia anymore, as they're entirely pushed out of this land, so that sucks. And now we're going to see the Arabic Union's plan over here in the Caspian come to fruition as they start to invade into like proper Russian territory. Look at the naval layer over here in the Caspian. We can see that before it was pretty split between all these different countries, but at this point the Arabic Union has attained full naval dominance over the Caspian Sea, and they're going to use that to their advantage. Obviously, why wouldn't they? As they make various naval landings all across these coastal areas, and this territory is basically falling over to the Arabic control, the Russians are really, really losing on basically all their fronts as they are pushed out of the Caspian Sea territory. Speaking of countries losing on all fronts, we have Pakistan, who is having a really, really horrible time. Indian rebels are rising up and they're joining the Ganjatic military, as like, I guess, militia forces. They're kind of untrained, which, I mean, that's brutal, you're sending them to war still. But oh well, they don't care that much, really. The Mint country is going to push back against some Kashmiri forces up here in the north, retaking this meat city and sending them almost back to their border. However, the Arabic Union is going to continue to push back against Pakistani forces, trying to retake the land of their fallen ally, the Salmon country, but they're not entirely successful until they are. So they push through all the Central Asian country, liberating or occupying the entire thing. I have got layer 28 over here, which is episode 80, which looks really, really different because the Germans are still in Canada. Also, the 4 nuclear bombs, there's people just hiding in a bunker with the 4 nukes, and the Pakistani country didn't find where they were, so that's why that's like that. But this front line, not much is happening over there until the Arabic Union decides to actually send some forces upwards, and also to drop some more nukes on the Russians, because that hasn't happened or in a while, and we need to bring that back. Nuking the Russians, I mean. So we see one, which the city was already nuked, but it's going to be nuked again. And these are some major metropolitan and urban areas. So the Arab Union is doing a really good job. I think that's 7. Nuking this territory, that's 8. That's quite a lot of nukes already. 9. The Arab Union is going to drop 10 nuclear bombs on the Russian state, which is going to bring them down definitely. We're down to 85 and 39. Which is kind of crazy how many nukes they've lost by now. The Russians are on 96, which is still a lot. So because the Arab Union just nuked them a lot of times, they're going to, using higher range and better developed nukes they have, launch them into the Caucasian region of this country, and also kind of Central Asia. I think that's 3, 4, 5. And they managed to launch some into the northern areas of Turkish country, and also into Romania. I think that could be, I don't know, honestly, man. 9. This is probably 10. Yeah, the Russians are going to launch 10, just like the Arab Union, maintaining the numbers advantage as they're on 86 and 49, which is more than the Arab Union, but they have less in their territory, which kind of sucks. Anyway, back over here to the front, right here in Asia. The main country is losing a lot of support from the Russians at this point. Okay, wrong layer, man. Let's go down to here, actually. I like this place. It's Southeast Asia again. So the Borneo nation is continuing to lose stuff. However, there could be hope, maybe, but probably not. The Sulawesi country is doing a really good job, and China has actually retaking a lot of the land they lost to these guys. The Javan country is struggling, and that's because they're having to fight all by themselves. And the Sulawesis just started to move in on this territory, and they pushed them out. So it seems unlikely they're really going to do anything. And just a quick checkup on Australia. We see this happen, and that's that. And then there's one more front that we haven't really checked on, and that's America. So how's America going? Well, not how much has changed. They just lost the capital of Texas, though, so that does suck. But there's that, and we need to head over to a few important areas, like Carthage. What does 33 and 7 mean? Where would 7 more nuclear bombs be? This is something that the Arab Union has just discovered, and it turns out there are 7 nuclear bombs in the Ghanaian country, which is their secret deal with the Carthaginians, and this is going to make people very annoyed in Carthage. We see just general losses of land over here in the Arab Union area, because people are like, what's going on? Why are you giving more nukes to other countries? I didn't think that's something you were doing. And the Arab Union was also kind of afraid of these guys. Carthage also allowed for the Spanish to take them out of this area, and also to nuke areas of Morocco. And all in all, what I'm building up here is there's going to be a big response to this. All across Moroccan territories in the Carthaginian Empire, we see major rebellions pop up, as this part of the empire doesn't want to stay with the country anymore. It's kind of sad, really. They wanted to join when they won the war, World War II, I mean. But at this point, these guys don't really feel that Carthaginian anymore, and with the discontent festering in this country in the midst of World War, whatever this is, 3, sorry, I keep forgetting. It's a very stressful war to do. The Arab Union is going to be even more successful in invading this territory here in Libya. They start to lose more and more ground to the oppressive Arabic military until they finally lose their capital, with this being a major symbol for maybe we should just get rid of Carthage. Yeah, Moroccan forces start to link up all across the empire. We see areas down here in the south, and also just the western coast, of course, and link up. The Cape Verde Islands are taken over by foreign boats. Not really like major naval vessels, because most of them are in the Mediterranean. But yeah, everything is going badly for these guys, and it's about to get even worse. Ghana is also just going to keep their nukes. But down here in this territory, we see 2 unlikely countries join the war. Won't really join the war because they're not going to declare war on the Carthaginians, because that's not a good idea. You don't want a war with China. They're just going to invade instead, which is mean, but they do it. They move into both of these islands, and then the green country over here is going to move in to the island of Tobago, which will look something like this. But when they invade the islands, they discover something fairly interesting and unexpected, which is there were 2 nuclear bombs stationed on both of these islands. So both of these countries now have 2 nuclear bombs of their own. This is, of course, going to bring down the Carthaginian total. But something that's going to bring down the Carthaginian total even more is them launching a load of these nuclear bombs, and also loads of them in Morocco at this point. They really like the Spanish, so they just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 nuclear bombs there. There's a 5th one that hits the Moroccan country area. There's a nuke their own territory. There's a 6th one there, and a 7th one, and an 8th one. And then over here in Libya, they drop 1, 2 there, and then I think it's 10. I just cannot count, man. That's 11 nuclear bombs. So, yeah, everything goes badly for them. And they're going to go down to just 11 nuclear bombs because they were 22. No, they fired 11. 4 were taken over here, which is 15. And then I forgot what happened to the rest of them because I might just. What the hell? Oh yeah, and then 7 were taken by Ghana. There we go, 22. So there. Sorry guys, I'm so confused. This war is very, very complex, but I'm having a really fun time doing it. So the Arabic Union has just moved into the capital area. Not everything in this country is really lost, but that's not having a fun time. The Italians move into the island of Sardinia, which they've wanted for a really long time, and Arabia is just having an amazing time moving to this territory. Random people with the nukes are going to move into the desert. However, some of the nukes have been secured by Morocco, but I won't confirm what number of those have been taken by these guys. But Morocco is having an excellent time over here. The Spanish don't know how they feel about Morocco. That's just like, I guess we'll let them do what they do. But back over here to China then, things have just gone badly for China, which is surprising because they usually don't. But that's because of the entry of 2 new countries into their own alliance, and I bet you can't guess who it is. It's going to be Korea and China. Indochina. Damn it. That was meant to sound cool, and then I ruined it. Oh my god, that was stupid. Anyway, the Korean forces move across the Chinese border, and the Chinese were not expecting this at all, and ultimately they're going to start to really lose territory. The Koreans are, I think, number 9 in the world, which is pretty amazing, and the Indo-Chinese are 11th or something. So both these countries are pretty formidable. Most of the Chinese forces are elsewhere, so both these countries have a very successful movement into the southern lands, and it's going to cause a lot of loss as the Filipino forces retreat from the Borneo country, which is amazing that they've actually gone. But China is having more problems than this because the Russians decide that this is the perfect time to actually have a major counteroffensive against the Chinese. It's kind of luck that they were just there, and then the Koreans, the Indo-Chinese joined, potentially because the Russians were going to try this. So one thing caused the other thing, which caused the other thing, which is strange. But the Russians do an excellent job of pushing back against Chinese forces here in the north, as they work alongside the Koreans up here to push back against China, and the Mongolians are also, here. The Mongolians are actually just, I'm so amazed they're still alive. But yeah, let's back over to these fronts. So the Russians had to withdraw a lot of troops from the Tibetan country, so they basically pulled out of there, and then all the Mid-Team forces have left the Kashmir country over to Pakistan, just whilst we're around in this area. By Pakistan, they've lost their capital city to the Arabic Union, and all their forces have basically had to withdraw from the Salmon country. So we see something like this happen, especially in the south, whilst in the north we see Mid-Team and Russian forces occupy bits of stuff. And these guys are going to send some of the forces in to occupy, same color, occupy the southern areas of the Salmon country, but that wasn't really very nice, was it? The Kashmir forces are now going to move up into some of this mid-occupied land. As Salmon country is an absolute nuclear wasteland, but oh well, that'll be fine. And the Mid-Team's going to lose their capital city to a combination of mostly Tibetan forces. So that sucks. But luckily the Russians are going to come back in and retake their capital. The nukes also just got moved somewhere else. The Arabic Union has kind of reinstated this country as an actual country, like the Salmon one. And the Pakistani nukes are being protected with people's lives, like literally. They really want to keep these in a potential post-war world. But now the Arabic Union and the Ganjiatic country border each other, and Central Asia looks super weird. This video is 34 minutes long already, which is kind of crazy. But oh well, I guess these videos are going to be long, and you just have to deal with that. Over here in Europe then, well, first off, the Irish are going to try to kind of fix, or at least if they can't fix it, just ruin things for other people, as they're going to drop some major nuclear bombs on major metropolitan areas of these countries. So one is dropped on the old British capital, and some of these inner industrial cities are nuked as well. So Ireland's going to go down to just 4 nuclear bombs. but that was kind of their last move. Because following this, the Franco forces push in and take over the entirety of Ireland. After that, Franco forces start to move up into Germany, who was really falling apart. They occupy the entire Dutch area. It's a very big brush to use. And look at the Spanish are also kind of getting their own back down in the south, but we're not focusing on the Spanish at the moment. They don't really have anyone to fight other than the French, so hooray for the Spanish, man. Go Spain. You do you, man. Good job. The Italians are also kind of helping a bit, but they also got pushed back a while ago. Anyway, they're mostly focusing their forces up here against the Germans because everyone is at this point. So Italian forces are doing an excellent job of pushing towards the German capital, and they've really taken a lot more land than they should be able to. The Russians are also going to move in towards the German capital. At this point, Germany is heavily nuked almost everywhere, so no one's really going to nuke them anymore, except the Russians. The Russians will. It says that Russia launches 5 nuclear bombs, 4 of them into Germany, and then 1 just into Norway because they felt like it. So that sucks for the Norwegians, but they just keep getting brutally nuked for no reason. Anyway, the Russians will occupy the capital city of the German country, whilst over here in the north we see the Norwegians basically just occupy everything else. And at this point, one of the strongest countries in the entire war has capitulated, along with the Carthaginians, another member of the Chinese alliance, and now China is having a lot of internal struggles as everything has gone really well for the Russians, apart from like Central Asia, but oh well. You can deal with Central Asia not going well. The Mongolians are starting to do some major counter-offensive stuff over here against the Chinese, and really China's just losing all their positions. Luckily for the Tibetans, they're doing a pretty good job at invading into the southern part of this country. But yeah, what the hell is going on? Everything has changed, and it's gone drastically, potentially bad. Pakistani people fighting with their nukes though. Anyway, the Gangetic country is going to push against the Arabic Union into the central core territory, whilst the Kashmir country kind of makes a nicer looking border. Salmon forces are going to help to push into the unoccupied or occupied territory of the Mint country, whilst the Arabic Union strengthens their hold over Russian, whatever this is, like Central Asian Aral territory. So the Russians aren't winning there, that's for sure. But what they are doing is doing a pretty good job at stuff in Caucasia. So, hooray for the Black Seas front. That's going well for you guys. But yeah, back over to China then, because a couple of nuclear bombs are going to be hit all over the Chinese territory. So, we're going to see 8 nuclear bombs hit the Chinese north, with 2 nuclear bombs being dropped on the Chinese capital, and then 1 over here. We see another one in this territory, 1 dropped on this peninsula. That's 5, 6, 7, and 8 nuclear bombs dropped in the north, and then down here in the south we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nuclear bombs dropped. And if you couldn't guess already, that's because it's Indochina and Korea who have mysteriously gained a load of nuclear bombs. Nobody really knows where they're from. They haven't captured them from China or anybody, but it's going to completely weaken the Chinese morale and frontline as they really start to continue to lose stuff to all these offending forces. The Koreans do a really good job at pushing into China, and at this point the Russians are going to join them too. So Russian forces start their invasion into the northern Chinese areas. What Russia's going to do is launch more nukes. So you see 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 nuclear bombs launched by the Russians. Of course, all this is going to warrant a response from China as they drop a ton of nuclear bombs all over these countries. Once they find out that Korea dropped these bombs, they're like, screw you guys. That's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 nuclear bombs there, 8 here. They dropped some into the Korean occupied territories. That's already 9 nuclear bombs. And then Indochina is also going to suffer a whole load of nuclear activity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 nuclear bombs dropped there. And then Borneo just gets 1 in the capital to make it, make it 10. So yeah, 10. I think I said 11 for the 9 for the north. Bombs just been. This is going to lower the Chinese to 81 and 21 nuclear bombs. With all these nuclear explosions and just horrible things happening across China, things are going to get pretty bad in the Chinese just general like public area. And we also see other things like the Australians are going to start to send their navy up to try and invade this country as they make landings in the southern parts of the Sulawesi country. And following that, we're going to see the blue country kind of joining the coalition of Indochina and Korea and starting their invasion up here into this Papua New Guinea territory. So everything is going crazily in the world at this point. Chinese forces are going to withdraw over here from Borneo, and this episode is incredibly long, but it's kind of fun. And China is at this point potentially the great power that's doing the worst, as everything seems to be collapsing all across China. People are having riots, and everything is falling apart. People aren't going to work, and people just like stopping fighting over here in the south. The Indo-Chinese have pushed towards the island of Hainan, and they've managed to capture it, which is insane. The Koreans are approaching the capital city of China, which is just inspiring more fear in the core, like potentially the areas they wanted to be the strongest in China. And they've had to withdraw all the troops from Russian occupied lands. Also, Russians are now starting to occupy Chinese lands. They still have lands in Mongolia though, so that's cool. And now the Russians are working alongside the Koreans to do a huge lot of damage to the Chinese north, which means they're moving in even closer to Chinese core stuff. And there you go. That is, I think I'm going to leave it for today's episode. We've achieved all the goals that I wanted to achieve in this one, and the world looks absolutely insane. So what's going to happen? Is China going to make an incredible recovery? Is Russia just going to absolutely blitz everybody like it looks like they're doing? Or is the Arabic Union going to do exactly what they're doing at the moment, which is also blitzing everybody? Find out, I guess. I really don't know, and I'm super curious.